Kiss isn't ending. It's about to live forever in 2026. The world of rock music has always thrived on reinvention, legacy, and the kind of larger-than-life personas that refuse to fade even as decades pass. Few bands embody that spirit, more than Kiss. Known for their explosive performances, iconic face paint, and unapologetic theatricality, Kiss has never been just a band, it has been a phenomenon. And now, as Paul Stanley hints that Kiss will carry on in 2026, the conversation around the future of the band has ignited once again, sparking excitement, curiosity, and even a bit of controversy among fans and critics alike. For many, the idea of Kiss continuing beyond its original members might seem almost surreal. After all, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have long been seen as the heart and soul of the band. Their chemistry, their vision, and their relentless drive built Kiss into a global brand that transcended music. But Stanley's recent comments suggest that the story is far from over. Instead of viewing Kiss as a fixed lineup tied to specific individuals, he appears to be embracing the idea of Kiss as an evolving entity, one that can survive, adapt, and thrive even as its founding members step back. This idea isn't entirely new. Kiss has always played with the concept of identity, the makeup, the characters, the stage personas. These elements have created a sense that Kiss is bigger than any one person. The Star Child, the Demon, the Spaceman, the Catman. These are roles, almost like characters in a long-running theatrical production. And if characters can be played by different actors on a stage, why not in a band that has always blurred the line between music and performance art? Still, the notion of Kiss continuing in 2026 raises important questions. What does it mean for a band to continue without its original members? Can the magic truly be replicated, or does it risk becoming something entirely different? For longtime fans who grew up with the original lineup, there's a deep emotional connection that goes beyond the music. It's about memories, moments, and the feeling of being part of something larger than life. Replacing that connection is no easy task. Yet Paul Stanley seems confident that the essence of Kiss can endure. He has spoken about the band not as a static group of musicians, but as a legacy, a brand, a concept, a living entity that can be passed on. In his vision, Kiss isn't ending, it's evolving. And evolution has always been a key part of the band's identity. From their early days in the 1970s to their massive stadium tours decades later, Kiss has constantly reinvented itself to stay relevant. The announcement that Kiss could carry on in 2026 also comes at a time when the music industry itself is changing rapidly. Technology, virtual performances, and new forms of entertainment are reshaping how audiences experience music. Kiss has already shown a willingness to embrace innovation, including the idea of digital avatars and virtual concerts. These developments open up possibilities that were unimaginable in the past. Imagine a future where Kiss exists both as a live band and as a digital experience, reaching audiences in ways that go beyond traditional concerts. Of course, with innovation comes skepticism. Some fans worry that continuing the band without its original members could dilute its authenticity. They argue that Kiss is not just about the costumes or the spectacle, but about the people behind them, the voices, the personalities, the energy that made the band unique. Without Paul Stanley's vocals or Gene Simmons' presence, can it really still be Kiss? Stanley's response to these concerns seems rooted in a broader perspective. He understands the emotional attachment fans have, but he also believes in the longevity of the concept. To him, Kiss was never meant to be confined to a specific moment in time. It was always about creating something timeless, something that could outlive the individuals who started it. In that sense, the idea of Kiss continuing in 2026 is not a departure from the band's identity, but a continuation of its original vision. Another aspect to consider is the potential for new talent to step into these iconic roles. This could open doors for a new generation of performers who grew up inspired by Kiss. It could bring fresh energy, new interpretations, and a different kind of connection with younger audiences. At the same time, it would require a careful balance, honoring the legacy while also allowing room for evolution. As the conversation unfolds, it becomes clear that this is about more than just one band. It's about the nature of legacy in music. Can a band become something bigger than its members? Can it transform into a living, breathing entity that continues across generations? Kiss might be one of the few bands uniquely positioned to explore this idea precisely because of the theatrical and symbolic nature of its identity. For now, the details remain uncertain. Paul Stanley hasn't revealed exactly how Kiss will carry on in 2026, or what form it will take. But the mere possibility has already sparked intense discussion. Fans are debating, speculating, and imagining what the future might look like. Some are excited about the idea of Kiss living on, while others feel that the band's story should have a definitive ending. What cannot be denied is the impact Kiss has had on music and culture. Their influence extends far beyond their songs. They redefined what it means to be a rock band, turning concerts into spectacles and musicians into larger-than-life icons. Whether or not the band continues in 2026, that legacy is already secure. But if it does continue, it could mark the beginning of a new chapter, one that challenges traditional notions of what a band can be. As the idea of Kiss continuing in 2026 settles into public consciousness, it becomes increasingly clear that this is not just a simple continuation of a band. It is a bold experiment in redefining legacy. Paul Stanley's vision seems to push beyond nostalgia and into something more forward-thinking, something that questions the very foundation of how we understand music groups and their lifespans. In a world where most bands eventually fade away or retire permanently, the possibility of Kiss evolving into a perpetual entity feels both revolutionary and risky. One of the most fascinating aspects of this discussion is how it challenges the emotional connection fans have with artists. Music is deeply personal. It's tied to memories, emotions, and specific moments in time. When fans think of Kiss, they don't just think of the songs. They think of Paul Stanley's voice, Gene Simmons' stage presence, the fire, the blood spitting, the raw energy of live performances. Replacing those elements, or even attempting to reinterpret them, is bound to stir strong reactions. Yet, if any band can attempt this transformation, it is Kiss. From the very beginning, they built their identity around characters rather than just individuals. The makeup created a layer of separation between the performer and the persona, allowing the characters themselves to take center stage. This approach has always given Kiss a unique flexibility, a sense that the band exists in a realm closer to mythology than reality. Paul Stanley's comments suggest that he sees this flexibility as the key to the band's future. Instead of viewing the end of touring as the end of Kiss, he appears to see it as a transition. The physical limitations of aging, the demands of touring, and the natural progression of time may bring an end to one phase, but they don't have to bring an end to the entire concept. In his view, KISS can continue to exist in new forms, whether through new performers, digital experiences, or a combination of both.